Ladies and gentlemen, when a narcissist tries to control you, they're not looking for truth. They're looking for power. But there's one sentence, just one, that takes that power right out of their hands. Today, I'm going to give you that sentence, and I'll show you exactly how to deliver it so they never try it again. You know, the first thing a narcissist needs you to do, they need you to bite. They throw out a little jab, a twisted version of what happened, a dig at your character, and they're watching for one thing, your reaction. That's the hook. If they can get you to defend yourself, explain yourself, or prove yourself, they've already won half the battle. Because now you're playing their game on their board by their rules. Here's the thing. They don't start with something obvious. They start small. A comment that could be innocent or maybe not. You've been really distant lately. Well, I didn't think you'd react like that. Everyone else seems to agree with me. See, that's not just conversation. That's a lure. They want you to stop, look at them, and give your energy to clarifying, fixing, or fighting what they just said. The problem is, when you chase every comment they make, you're telling them, yes, my emotions are available for you to manipulate. And the moment they know they can get you to explain, they will keep you explaining until you're exhausted. That's how control works. It's not about big blow-ups. It's about tiny strings you don't notice until you're tangled in them. So spotting the hook means noticing that little tug in your chest when someone says something that just doesn't sit right. That moment you think, hold on, that's not fair, or that's not what happened. Your instinct is to jump in and correct it. But if you can pause there right in that moment, you've just created your first layer of defense. Here's a little trick. When they say something and you feel that flash of, I need to answer that, instead of speaking, ask yourself, if I don't answer, what happens? 9 times out of 10, the only thing that happens is they don't get the reaction they were fishing for. And that's a problem for them, not for you. You have to understand, narcissists aren't fueled by truth. They're fueled by your reaction. If you can start seeing their comments as fishing lines instead of actual statements about you, you won't feel the pull to bite. You'll hear you're overreacting. And instead of jumping into, no, I'm not, here's why, you'll think, oh, that's bait, and you let it drop. The reason spotting the hook is so powerful is because it shifts the entire dynamic. You go from reacting to observing. You go from being the person in the storm to the person watching the storm from a distance. And the minute they realize you're not stepping into the ring, their swings hit nothing but air. It's not about ignoring reality. It's about refusing to fight in the arena they've built for you. They thrive on drama, chaos, and confusion because that's where they have the advantage. But calm stillness, a lack of engagement, that's their kryptonite. Now, I'm not saying this is easy. In fact, the hardest part is the first time you try it. Your whole body is wired to defend yourself when someone twists your words or questions your intentions. But every time you resist that urge and instead clock it as bait, you train yourself to hold on to your power. And you train them to realize they can't just toss out a line and expect you to grab it. So start small. The next time someone drops a comment that feels off, don't rush to fix it. Don't rush to argue. Just notice that's step one. Because when you can spot the hook, you stop getting reeled in. And that's when you start winning the game without even playing it. Once you've spotted the hook, the next challenge is to keep yourself from getting dragged into it. And that's where detaching your emotion comes in. Now, this doesn't mean you stop feeling. You're human. You're going to feel frustrated, hurt, even angry when someone comes at you sideways. What I'm talking about is choosing not to hand those feelings over to the person who's trying to provoke you. It's about creating a little space between what they say and what you do next. See, narcissists don't just want you to hear their words. They want you to feel them. They want you to get rattled to second guess yourself, to come at them with everything you've got, so they can twist it back around and say, see, look at how you're acting. If you're all wounded up, they control the pace, the energy, and the frame of the conversation. But when you detach your emotion, you take that control away. You shift the interaction from their game to yours. That's when you start to respond instead of react. And here's the difference. Reacting is fast, unfiltered, and usually fueled by whatever emotion hits you in the moment. Responding is calm, measured, and intentional. It's the difference between throwing the first thing you grab and taking the time to aim. I want you to imagine you're standing on a dock and someone's splashing around in the water, yelling for you to jump in. You can panic and dive right in without thinking, or you can stay on the dock, take a breath, and decide how you're going to handle it. That pause, that's emotional detachment in action. It gives you time to remember what's really happening here. The fastest way to lose your footing with a narcissist is to make the conversation about your feelings instead of their behavior. Because the second they see they've stirred something up in you, they'll keep stirring. And here's the kicker. They're not trying to understand you. They're trying to control you. So why give them more to work with? One of the best ways to keep that detachment is to focus on your tone. When you lower your voice and slow your words, you send a signal to them and to yourself that you're not going to be rushed into an emotional corner. You're not matching their heat. You're controlling the temperature. And it's hard for someone to keep a fire going when you're not adding fuel. Another thing you can do is mentally separate the person from the truth. Just because someone says something doesn't make it true. You can hear it, acknowledge that they said it, and still not accept it as reality. That's where the power is, knowing that their words are just noise unless you give them weight. Sometimes this means letting a comment hang in the air without immediately answering it. That silence might feel uncomfortable at first, but it's often the most powerful move you can make. It tells them you're not rushing to justify yourself. You're not scrambling to fix the version of the story they just threw at you. You're simply not playing. The more you practice this, the more you'll notice a shift. They'll start testing you with sharper comments, maybe even trying to escalate things to get a reaction. That's when you know it's working because they're realizing the old buttons they used to push don't work anymore. And when those buttons stop working, their controls start slipping. So here's the mindset you keep in your back pocket. I'm not here to win their approval. I'm here to protect my peace. When you operate from that place, your emotions become yours again. And when your emotions are yours, so is your power. And that's the moment they realize they can't make you dance anymore. Once you've spotted the hook and you've kept your emotions from spilling into their hands, the next step is to take control of the pace. Because here's what most people don't realize. Narcissists thrive on speed. They want you moving fast. They want you rushing to answer. They want you talking, though, before you've had time to think. When you're in that mode, you're not choosing your words. You're scrambling to keep up. And when you're scrambling, you make mistakes. You say too much. You give them exactly what they were hoping for. That's where the power pause comes in. Slow your tone. Drop your volume. Control the rhythm. The second you take a beat before you answer, you shift the power back to you're no longer letting them set the tempo. You're setting it yourself. And that's dangerous for them because now they can't ride the momentum of their own manipulation. I'll tell you why this works. People who manipulate count on you to react in the heat of the moment. They count on you filling silence because silence makes most people uncomfortable. But when you pause, even for just 2 or 3 seconds, it sends a different message. I'm not playing catch up here. I'm deciding how this is going to go. And in those few seconds, something changes in your brain. You go from reacting to evaluating. You go from, I have to say something right now, to what's actually the best move here. It's almost like hitting the brakes in the middle of a conversation. Everything slows down. And that slowing down forces them to sit in the space they just created. And trust me, narcissists hate that space because it means they're not getting what they want. Instant compliance, instant explanation, instant emotional payoff. This is also where lowering your voice comes in. When you speak more slowly and quietly, people have to lean in to hear you. And in doing that, you subtly flip the roles. They're now following your lead. You're no longer chasing the pace they set. They're adjusting to yours. That's a small shift with a big impact. You might be thinking, but what if they try to interrupt? Good, let them. Because when you're calm and deliberate, their interruptions only highlight the fact that they're trying to dominate the exchange. And the more obvious that becomes, the more control you have, not by overpowering them, but by refusing to be pulled into their rhythm. The pause isn't just about how you speak, it's also about what you don't say. Sometimes the most powerful response is no immediate response at all. You let their comments sit there. You let it hang. That forces them to either repeat themselves or reveal more about what they're trying to do. Either way, you've bought yourself time and shifted the pressure back onto them. And here's the truth. Pausing doesn't just make them uncomfortable, it makes you stronger, because in that pause, you have a chance to remember your boundaries, to choose words that won't be twisted, and to keep your energy where it belongs, on you, not them. This takes practice. The first time you try it, those few seconds of silence might feel like an eternity. You might even feel the urge to fill it, just to make things less awkward. But that awkwardness is your ally. It's the exact thing that throws them off balance. It's the moment they realize you're not giving them the fast, heated, emotional back and forth they were banking on. So the next time you feel that pressure to rush your response, don't take the pause. Breathe. Lower your tone, and then only when you're ready, answer in a way that serves you, not them. Because the moment you control the pace, you control the conversation. By the time you spotted the hook, kept your emotions in check, and slowed the pace, you're ready for the part that seals it, the sentence itself. And here's the beauty of it. It's short, it's clear, and it's unshakable. That's your opinion, not my reality. Just 8 words. But they carry more weight than any long-winded defense you could ever give. This sentence works because it doesn't attack, it doesn't explain, and it doesn't invite debate. It plants a flag. You're telling them without raising your voice or getting tangled in their words that you're drawing a line between what they believe and what's true for you. You're saying, I heard what you said, but I'm not accepting it as fact. Here's the thing. Narcissists love turning disagreements into proof that you're wrong, unstable, or too emotional. If you go into detail, they'll pick apart your details. If you try to prove your point, they'll twist it until you're defending yourself for something you didn't even mean. But this sentence, there's nothing to untangle. There's no loophole. It just sits there like a locked door. And the reason it makes them so uneasy is because it takes away their favorite weapon, control over your reality. They want you to question yourself. They want you to wonder if maybe they're right. But when you say, that's your opinion, not my reality, you're making it clear you won't be stepping into that fog. You're standing firmly in what you know to be true. The delivery matters here. You don't throw it at them like a jab. You say it calm, steady, almost like you're stating the weather. No sarcasm, no smirk, no extra explanation. The power is in the simplicity. When you keep it neutral, they can't claim you were being aggressive or unreasonable. They just have to sit with the fact that their words didn't land where they wanted them to. Some people worry that saying this will make things worse, and yes, a narcissist might push back. They might double down or try to provoke you even harder. But that's fine because you can repeat it as many times as you need to. You don't have to reward it or strengthen it. You just calmly return to it like a brick wall they keep trying to knock down. It's also important to understand this sentence isn't about convincing them to see your side. That's not the goal. The goal is to stop them from rewriting your reality. You're not here to get them to agree with you. You're here to keep yourself from agreeing with them when you know they're wrong. When you use this sentence, you're not only protecting yourself in the moment, you're sending a bigger message over time. You're showing them again and again that their version of events, their accusations, and their attempts to define you will never be the final word. And once they see that pattern, many will stop trying as hard because the payoff isn't there anymore. And maybe the most powerful part, this sentence frees you from over-explaining. You don't owe anyone a dissertation about who you are and what's true. You owe yourself peace. And peace doesn't come from getting someone else to believe you. It comes from believing yourself even when they don't. So when they say you've always been selfish or you're too sensitive or everyone thinks you're wrong, you don't argue. You don't list examples. You don't try to win. You just say that's your opinion, not my reality. And then you let it be. Because the moment you can stand in that truth without trying to pull them into it, you've already won. When you've just delivered that sentence, the next move is the one that really makes it sink in. You hold the silence. You don't rush to fill it. You don't back and you don't soften it with extra words. You just let the quiet do the heavy lifting. Most people underestimate silence. We've been trained to treat it like something awkward that needs to be fixed. The second there's a pause, we feel the itch to fill it, to keep the conversation flowing, to make sure nobody feels uncomfortable. But here's the truth. Silence is a tool, and in the right hands, it's more powerful than any comeback you could give. When you hold the silence after making your point, you take away the narcissist's next move. They're waiting for you to add something they can twist, to get defensive so they can pounce, or to rush in with an apology you don't owe. But when you stop talking, all they have is the sentence you gave them, and they have to sit with it. This is where their discomfort starts to work in your favor. Narcissists are not good at sitting in stillness because stillness means they're not controlling the exchange. It means they're not steering your emotions or bending the narrative. And the longer you keep that space open, the more it forces them to react to you instead of the other way around. The key here is not to treat the silence like a standoff. You're not staring them down like you're trying to win a contest. You're just being calm, present, and unmoved. Maybe you take a sip of water. Maybe you look away for a moment. Maybe you simply breathe. The point is, you're showing that you don't need to scramble to keep them comfortable. And it's not just about what they see. It's about what you feel. The first few times you try this, you might notice your heart beating faster. You might feel that urge to break the quiet because you think they're expecting something from you. That's just habit talking. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes to hold your ground without rushing to add more. Silence also does something else. They will often try to fill it, and when they do, they reveal more. They'll either repeat themselves, escalate, or try a different angle to bait you. And every time they do, you get more insight into how they operate. They're showing you their hand without even realizing it. Sometimes they'll laugh it off, sometimes they'll get sharper, and sometimes they'll pretend they didn't hear you. None of that changes your job. You've already said what you needed to say. You don't chase their reaction. You let them have it. And then you move when you decide to move, not when they push you to. It's almost like a negotiation. The first person to break the silence usually loses ground. In this case, it's not about winning or losing. It's about staying in control of yourself. You can't be pulled into their rhythm if you're not speaking on their cue. The more you master this, the more you realize that silence isn't weakness. It's strength in its purest form. It's the refusal to engage in a fight you didn't agree to. It's the confidence to know you don't need to over-explain to be right. And it's the quiet reminder to them that their words don't decide your reality. So, when you've delivered your truth and they're looking at you waiting for the next round, resist the urge to hand it to them. Hold the silence, because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. Once you've said your piece and let the silence work for you, the last step is the one that makes the whole thing stick. You end it on your terms. You don't hang around waiting for them to agree. You don't linger to see how they react. And you don't let them drag you into one more round. You walk away physically or verbally. And you do it before they have a chance to pull you back in. This is where most people slip up. They've done all the hard work. They've spotted the hook, stayed calm, slowed the pace, delivered their truth, and held the silence. But then they stay. And staying gives the narcissist exactly what they need. More time to find a crack in your wall. More time to change tactics. More time to reset the game in their favor. Leaving on your terms sends a very different message. It says, I decide when this conversation is over. That's not arrogance. That's boundaries. And boundaries are what narcissists fear most. Because boundaries mean they no longer have unlimited access to your attention, your energy, or your emotions. Now, walking away doesn't always mean physically leaving the room, though sometimes that's exactly what you need to do. It can also mean ending the call, changing the subject, or simply saying, I'm not continuing this conversation, and following through. The key is that you're not doing it in anger. You're doing it with control. Calm is what makes it powerful. And yes, they might chase you verbally. They might throw one last jab or guilt trip as you're stepping away. That's their attempt to rehook you. But you've already made your decision and you stick to it. No turning back to defend yourself. Note just one more thing. Because the moment you turn back, you give them the opening they were hoping for. The reason this is so effective is because narcissists rely on access. They can't control what they can't read. If you cut off that access when you choose, not when they've worn you down, you break the pattern they're used to. You're not the person who stays until they've had the last word. You're the person who ends it when it no longer serves you. This step is also about protecting your own mental space. If you leave before things spiral, you save yourself from the emotional drain that comes from going in circles. You keep the dignity you worked so hard to maintain in the earlier steps, and you walk away knowing you didn't just survive the interaction. You controlled it. Over time, ending things on your terms teaches them something important. They can't keep you in a conversation longer than you want to be there. That's a big shift because it removes one of their favorite strategies, wearing you down until you say something they can use against you. So when you've delivered your sentence, held your silence, and you feel that moment where the conversation has reached its peak, take the exit. Do it calmly, do it without drama, and do it without looking back. Because the most powerful end to a game they've been playing for years is to be the one who ends it. So when you put it all together, spotting the hook, detaching your emotion, slowing the pace, delivering the sentence, holding the silence, and ending it on your terms, you're not just protecting yourself in the moment. You're changing the entire dynamic. You're showing them without yelling or fighting that their words don't define you, their tactics don't control you, and their version of reality isn't yours to carry. The beauty is you don't have to outshout them, out-argue them, or convince them of anything. You just stand in your truth, calm and unshaken, and you let that be enough. And over time, they'll learn what you already know.